is. All right.
Let's go the music.
There we go. Hey, okay. Hi, everybody.
Turn that back up.
Yes. Okay, great. So, good evening, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers, yes. Well, cheers. Yeah, not cheers.
Brought to you by, again, I'm drinking brandy. But Chris.
Homemade cider from one of my colleagues, actually. So, thank you, Stephen, for this. And I have another Aleworks order. I'm going to need to work on the advertising thing, apparently. Branding.
Yes.
But anyways,
branding.
yes. But yeah, so thanks for joining us again here tonight on week number 8. Is this 8?
I think so.
8 something. But yeah, so here we are.
There's some glimmer of hope in the horizon. We're
Yes.
waiting for clarification, which we posted a question to Virginia Tourism today. So hopefully they will get us clarified on what we can and cannot do. Maybe in phase 1.
Maybe, maybe not. Who
Fingers
knows?
crossed.
We'll see. Well,
We're just waiting.
we're just waiting.
'Cause that's what we do.
Yep, we're looking at we're hoping to be looking at about a week and a half, but we just don't know yet.
As
we'll
I said,
see.
we're waiting for clarification because our part of the business under entertainment and tourism was very unclear.
Yep.
So we're just waiting to get clarification.
Yep. But in the meantime, we are here to hang out with you tonight. So we are very happy to be back here with you again this evening to bring up our part 2 of our Haunted Palaces chat. Mm-hmm. It looks like, feels like 8 years. Totally with you there. But, part 2 of our Haunted Palaces chat, because last week, if you tuned in with us, you know that we were talking about, we did some research for this and came up with way too much material to share in one show.
I like haunted castles, what can I say?
And
there's royalty?
And we still wound up going way over on time. So,
we did.
Yeah, and so last week we did England and Hawaii, which oddly enough you might not expect, but they actually have some pretty close ties.
Yep.
And so, so we had those, and this week we are going to be going ahead and doing more international chat. This week we do not have anything tying back to Virginia or even the United States.
Because we did the only one last week.
Yeah.
But we are going to be bouncing around France, Scotland, Sweden, Norway, and India. So we're going to bounce quite a bit tonight. Now, Chris and I've been to 3 of these. Chris has been to 2 of these castles. And I definitely want to get to the one in Sweden because it has one of the oldest, still working theaters in the world. It's from the 1700s. And it's actually a UNESCO site. So I desperately want to get to this castle and this palace and this theater and actually see a show there. I want to actually tour the backstage too because it has all the original old working parts to it. So I was extremely happy when I found out that it was haunted as well. I was like, woo! One of those fun things. Yes, I'm rambling. Theater and ghosts, I love them both and they go hand in hand.
Tonight they do.
Yes. So we're actually going to start in France with the Palace of Versailles. Just outside of Paris. It is a absolutely gorgeous property. You will be able to spend all day on it. I unfortunately, when I went, it was in high school and we only had 2 hours. So I only got to tour the main structure. I didn't get to any of the outbuildings, which are some of the ones that are haunted, or the grounds as well. But originally, it is a 17th century building. It has 2,000 acres of gardens and fountains. It has a chateau, which is 2,300 rooms. I don't ever want to do housekeeping there. 67 staircases. I found that to be interesting.
Get your exercise in.
Yes, you would. Get your steps in. Get your levels in.
And 67,000 square meters.
Yeah.
Now, a square meter is about roughly, it's a little more than 9 square feet. So, 67,000 times 9, you're looking, almost half, 400,000 square feet of real estate.
Levels.
Yeah.
It's a big building. And
yes.
that's just the main building. That's not the outbuildings. So it is a gorgeous place to go see. Of course, most famously because King Louis, the Sun King, and Marie Antoinette.
Let them eat cake.
Yes, this was their palace. King Louis is actually the one who took it in hand and did a lot of the remodeling on it to make it is what it is today. They famously threw parties and galas and overspent while their nation was starving, thus the French Revolution happened. and they were actually carted off of there, imprisoned in another palace, under house arrest for 3 years when they tried to escape, and then were finally imprisoned in a prison and lost their heads. So, there's your little bit of French history for the evening. Now, it is haunted, and the first haunted that was recorded was actually in 1901. And this was up for debate. It is known as the Moberly-Jourdan experience. So if you look it up, that's what comes up. And these are two women, Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdan. They were touring the Palace of Versailles one hot August afternoon in 1901. They are both women who were about to go start working together as principal, vice principal of a school, and so they did a 3-week tour together to kind of get to know each other before they started working together. I kind of wish we actually had this in schools today. That would be so awesome. Times have changed. Anyway, they went on the sightseeing trip, and they ended up going into the Palace of Versailles, specifically into the Petit Trianon, which is actually where Marie Antoinette had her private residence on site. And when they were going through the gardens, they had several strange encounters. And this is where the idea of a time rift comes into play, because what they actually saw was sort of a vignette of people at a garden party. Somebody was actually sketching, somebody was having tea, somebody was, looked like an old gardener that was pocked face, like they had the smallpox, which at that point in time, smallpox actually was not as noticeable on people's faces. But it was very odd for them to see all these people in old-fashioned style clothing. Now, it wasn't uncommon for a local artist to actually stage vignettes, but there was none scheduled that day that they were at the palace. They were actually escorted from one area by a footman in old-style clothing that said, "No, you can't go this way, you need to go this way, ladies," and escorted them right into a wedding that was going on site in old-fashioned attire. And they thought, okay, this is very, very odd. Why would you escort random guests touring the facility to a private event, a wedding? But they got back inside the building. They continued their tour of the facilities, and they didn't speak to each other about what they had experienced until months later. And that's when they both realized part of the area that they had been escorted into didn't even exist in 1901. It did exist back in Marie Antoinette's time. Those buildings are no longer there, no longer standing when they were there. They walked past that were no longer standing. And so this is where people think that maybe they did actually step into sort of some type of time rift, and then when they went back into the building, they stepped back into modern time. It's a really interesting conundrum to explore.
Not necessarily a haunting per se, but definitely paranormal in nature.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now it is Marie Antoinette who is said to haunt this building, the Petit Trianon. She is heard laughing gaily through the area. She is heard wrestling with her big dresses in the area. King Louis also haunts this area. He is actually seen in the big palace of Versailles, and he's wandering around looking for his wife and children, or it's possible he is wandering around fretting, trying to figure out how things got so out of hand. Oops.
Well, king of obliviousness, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then he lost his head. At least he still has his head while he's wandering around.
Yeah. Or, I don't know, I haven't done enough research on it. Is it all completely on Louis and Marie Antoinette, or were there advisors hiding things from them?
It probably was both, because you didn't want to upset the king.
Oh well.
Yeah.
A little more historical research to do just for our own sake.
Yes. Other spirits at the Versailles, and this one I find really interesting because we have a U.S. connection here. Benjamin Franklin haunts it. Yeah.
Carry on.
So he was, if you know your history, he was the representative to France during the Revolution. And he would go to them and beg for aid, and, he actually visited Versailles quite often, and apparently he enjoyed it so much that he comes back to visit every now and then. So I find that really cool. One of our founding fathers is in Versailles. Also, Charles de Gaulle actually used the northern wing of the Grand Trianon of the palace as his offices during his presidency, and Napoleon Bonaparte also stayed there, and they both are seen walking the halls as well. And his second wife is with Napoleon as well. So yeah, quite an interesting collection of ghosts in the Palace of Versailles.
Carrying on.
Carry on.
In France?
France.
We're still in France. So we have the Chateau De Brosak. And it is dubbed as the tallest castle in France. The chateau is said to have originally been built as a castle by the Counts of Anjou during the 11th century. And during the 15th century, the chateau was rebuilt as a fort-like structure by one of Charles VII's ministers. And during the French Wars of the Religion, which broke out during the 16th century, the chateau was made into his possession by Henry of Navarre, who would later reign as Henry IV of France.
So this is where our royal connection comes in.
Yes.
And a little bit later as well.
Yeah, so all the kings, all the royalty, all across France, they're all related.
They're interconnected.
By the time all is said and done, it's kind of crazy just to see how interconnected they all are, particularly by the time, do a little research, see where they're all at by the time World War I hits. Turns out World War I was kind of just basically a big sibling extended family spat. It was kind of disturbing and a little disgusting that they got to that level. But anyways.
Yeah. But it's still, the chateau is still lived in by the Dukes of Brissac, and it is their residence, but it is open for tours as well, which is kind of cool to go and see it. It's a very beautiful place. I have not been to this one. I've been to another one, but it's gorgeous. Now, this one is haunted by what is known as the Green Lady, and she is actually the daughter of royalty via a mistress.
The Dame de Vere.
Yes. So she is the illegitimate daughter of King Charles VII and his mistress, Agnes Sorrel. And her marriage was a marriage of politics, let's say.
Which was common at the time.
It was. But she was actually married off to one of the dukes, and she was also the half-sister of King Louis XI. So again, 1462, her marriage is arranged between Charlotte and Jacques de Brissac, who is a nobleman. It is claimed that this is, again, politically motivated, that two did not love each other in any way, shape, or form, and, well, Charlotte took another man. Not a good idea.
More inclined to a little bit more of a sophisticated life.
Yes.
Which supposedly we're led to understand that it would be a happier life as well. But, well, as you know, these things don't necessarily always go well. In May of 1477, Jacques is said to have returned from a hunting trip to have dinner with his wife and then went to his room. It seemed that the couple did not sleep in the same bed, and in the middle of the night, a servant woke Jacques up to inform him that his wife was having an affair with a man by the name of Pierre de la Vere. Jacques caught his wife and her lover red-handed. And, in a fit of rage, murdered the adulterous couple. Apparently, Jacques moved out of the chateau shortly after the murder, as he could not stand the moaning of his late wife's and her lover's ghosts. Moaning?
I don't even want to know where that's from.
Still having a good time?
Possibly, or the moaning from being stabbed to death.
Anyone's guess.
I mean...
Have to hear it for yourself.
Yeah.
If you're so inclined. But anyways,
So
today's
today.
claim that only the ghost of Charlotte remains in the chateau, and there are no reported sightings of Pierre's ghost anymore. Who perhaps may have moved on at some point in time.
Not another female ghost?
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
The dukes of the chateau and their families are said to have grown accustomed to her presence, though it is claimed that guests have been frightened by her.
Now, her favorite haunt is actually said to be the tower room of the chapel, and it's where she can be found in her green dress, thus her name. And additionally, it's also claimed that the ghost's face, when you do see her, has holes in the place of her nose and eyes, perhaps a reflection of what was done to her when she was murdered. Her moans are heard throughout the chateau in the early hours of the morning. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So yes, the Green Lady of the Chateau.
Yeah.
The French. It's the French.
It's a very French thing.
It's a very very French thing. It's kind of what they're
very passionate.
Yes, it's their stereotype. Shame on us, stereotyping.
And I have French blood in me.
As do I.
So
my
be ancestors. All right, so we're going to go up to Scotland.
Yes.
To Edinburgh Castle, which is one place Chris and I have been. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's quite the amazing structure up there on the pinnacle of volcanic rock in the middle of the city of Edinburgh today.
Yeah, we were up there when the military tattoo was going on. We did not go see it. We could not get tickets for it. But you could hear it throughout the entire city. And so often at night we would be walking through the city along the Royal Mile and we would hear it going off and see the fireworks as well. And we toured it during the day. And it literally is an entire day trip. We actually left early because we had tea reservations at the local museum, and their cafe area actually overlooks Edinburgh Castle, which is absolutely gorgeous. So
got to visit it, got to see it over afternoon tea, and just an absolutely amazing structure there. And it dates back, they figured that there's been settlements there on particularly that Castle Rock as it's known, going all the way back to the 2nd century AD. So we're looking ancient 1800 years at this point, settlements going back. And although the nature of that early settlement isn't exactly clear, there's been a royal castle on the rock at least since the reign of David I in the 12th century. So there's been a castle up there for roughly at least 800 years.
At least. Now, this is also a royal residence up until 1633. And, of course, it was also part of the Wars of Independence in the 14th century, the Jacobite Rising of 1745. And in 2004, they actually did a study to find out just how many sieges this castle has withstood, and it was 26 sieges. So that thing has been around and through a lot.
It's been, it was put to good use over the years, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Good use.
It is actually considered the most besieged place in Great Britain and one of the most attacked places in the world.
That's saying something.
That is. So with that, there's been an awful lot of ghost activity in Scotland, in Edinburgh Castle. We're not going to get into all of it.
No.
But what I chose to focus on is one really unique story of the tunnels that lead out of it, but also the largest paranormal investigation that took place there, which I found this to be really interesting. Since a lot of you like in paranormal investigations, I thought it'd be cool to talk you through one that happened here.
Now, just so you kind of get a bearing of where you are if you go up there today, most of the buildings up there, even though there's been some sort of settlement there for many centuries, the buildings that are up there today only date back to about the 16th century, because at that point in time there was a great siege that basically did completely level the fortress that was up there on the hill. So everything got rebuilt from that point in the 16th century, and that's most of what you'll see up there today.
Now, the things that do happen up in the castle in the various locations actually makes this one of the most haunted places in Edinburgh and all of Scotland. But people actually report hearing music echoing through the halls, and there's absolutely no musical instruments in the castle anywhere. Not on display, nothing. Not until the military tattoo in August, anyway. Doors and windows will open and close on their own. Strange voices are heard whispering in the night. On various occasions, visitors to the castle have reported hearing a phantom piper, a headless drummer, and the spirits of French prisoners from the 7 Years' War and the colonial prisoners from the American Revolutionary War. There's even a ghost dog wandering in the grounds dog cemetery. Shadowy figures, sudden drops in temperature, and the feeling of something tugging on your clothes are everyday experiences in this castle. So it's quite busy. Now, I did mention the Phantom Piper. The story for the Phantom Piper actually comes from a discovery of the hidden tunnels that run from the castle down through the Royal Mile, and that is actually the street that runs all the way to Holyrood Palace, which we'll get to next.
Tunnel to Hollywood, that'd be something else.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Long tunnel, though. And here's our baby girl.
Is she moving on?
I think she is, so I think you can actually come up.
Okay.
because Princess has been disrupted enough these days.
Yes.
All right, so they weren't sure where these tunnels actually were located and where they would come out. So what they did is they sent a bagpiper down into the tunnels, and he was to play, and they were going to follow him on the surface by hearing the sound of the bagpipes. Well, he got about halfway down the Royal Mile, and all of a sudden the music stopped. When they went in to look for the bagpiper, they couldn't find him. He had disappeared.
Only so many places you could go.
Yeah, but they never found the body. And he is heard today. Sometimes you can walk out on the Royal Mile and you'll hear this bagpiper coming from underneath your feet, which is creepy.
I do gotta say, though, I mean, that's one... I need to try hard to debunk that. Mm-hmm. You're hearing a piper up on the Royal Mile. There's pipers all over Edinburgh. There are. At all hours of the day and night.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to actually go in the tunnel and see if you can hear something.
Yes. Now, there's no doubt that there certainly is kind of a creepy bit to go with the piper in the tunnel and stuff like that. But hearing a bagpiper on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh isn't exactly something that's uncommon.
No, and it does echo through all those buildings, especially when you're in the closes. It really echoes. Yeah. And it's hard to figure out where it's coming from.
Heck, we had a bagpiper up here on Church Hill a couple weeks ago.
And we're like, where is it? It's like, are you in the park? Where are you?
Could have been anywhere between 1 block away and 10 blocks away with the way bagpipes carry.
Oh, yeah. All right, so the investigation took place April 6th through the 17th in 2001, and this was actually part of the Edinburgh International Science Festival. Dr. Richard Wiseman was the psychologist who was in charge of the investigation. He was out of Hertfordshire University in southeast England. He enlisted the help of over 240 volunteers. Now, there was a catch. You could not volunteer if you had any knowledge of the hauntings of the castle.
Which is a good catch to have, actually, if you're trying to do a blind investigation and get a truly unbiased results.
Oh, yeah, and he didn't tell them anything. Once he had the volunteers, he didn't tell them anything. He truly wanted them to go in blind, and they did. They actually went in for 10 days, and they went into the castle and various parts of the castle and the tunnels in groups of 10. They had with them, thermal imagery, geomagnetic sensors, temperature probes, night vision equipment, and digital cameras. They didn't have EVP recorders. So I'd be really curious what would have happened if they had EVP recorders.
It is kind of odd because EVPs is usually the base level type of investigation equipment. It's the first thing that most people go out with.
Yeah, and in 2001, you would have had some type of EVP recorder, or at least some type of tape recorder that you could have
they've been around forever. I mean, you look at go back to that they were using those in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, so I'm really surprised he didn't have those. But they led them through the creepy cellars, the chambers, the vaults. When they came upon an area that was known as a hot spot, where there were previous claims of paranormal activity, they didn't let them know. They also threw in random spots where no recorded activity had happened before, and people actually experienced things in those areas as well. They said 51% of the participants in the haunted areas reported paranormal experiences, and 35% of them did so in the non-haunted areas as well. Wiseman tried to be as scientific as possible about this study. The volunteers, as I said, were not told which cells or vaults were haunted and which ones were not, but this is the list of experiences that they had. Sudden drops in temperature that they were able to record. The sight of shadowy figures. The feelings of being watched. One person reported a burning sensation on the arm. Another person reported an unseen presence was touching or stroking their face. The feeling of something tugging at their clothes. One person reported sighting a specter in a leather apron, a ghost that has actually been seen before in this location. Wiseman, who's a skeptic, tried to expose the myths of various British hauntings all throughout of his life, and he was not able to debunk anything at the castle. The evidence that he was able to collect over 10 days included some orb activity on camera, and a green blob that nobody could explain how it came about on the camera.
That was interesting.
Yeah. Now, there's one woman who also had the most frightening experience of her life during this. She was actually put into one of the dark South Brij vaults alone with a camera. She said this experience almost brought her to tears. She was locked in that area, and she heard almost immediately the sound of breathing from a corner of the room. And they did do a sweep of it. There was nobody else in there but her. And that breathing kept getting louder and louder and louder and closer. Yeah. She saw a flash of light or some sort of light in the corner. At that point, she demanded to be let out, and she ran out of the vault. I would have as well, having been touched by a ghost and had my necklace yanked by a ghost in the catacombs. Not fun.
No, yes. The catacombs there, that was...
Those things are awesome, by the way. Go in, I will go in them forever. I will do an investigation the next time we're there, but creepy as all get out.
Have we talked about the catacombs on a different show?
No.
No?
That's going to be another show.
Okay, just real quick. When we visited there, we did specifically, actually, we went 2 nights. And we
planned on one night, and I loved it so much we went a second night.
Yeah, ghost tours. We pre-booked ghost tour for our first night. Loved it so much, went back for a second night. Strongly recommend the leading tour company there in Edinburgh. Their name is Meerkat Tours, and they do an excellent job. They've been doing it for at least 30 years.
Yes,
they've been around for a long time.
They own part of the catacombs.
Yes, so they get to take you inside the catacombs, and it was a really neat experience. So if you get a chance,
very well led, great storytellers.
Yep.
One of our guides actually was on their tour before ours. And she's the one who recommended them to us, and we were like, yes, awesome, maybe we'll get the same tour guide. Nope, we got 2 different tour guides, but they were just as awesome.
They were fantastic. So, but yeah, and we're not done with Edinburgh yet. We have another story, and for this we are going to take a stroll down the aforementioned Royal Mile. Now, the Royal Mile, it's today mainly a pedestrian road, and you can go out there and you can see all kinds of like buskers today, and kind of entertainment, and people all dressed up in classic, the tartans and the kilts and stuff like that, going up and down there. It's it is kind of a little bit.
It is touristy.
It's a little touristy. There's all kinds of touristy shops where you can go and you can get your lamb's wool scarves and stuff like that, which we...
The World of Whiskey's there, which is wonderful.
Yes. The World of Whiskey?
Yes.
World of Whiskey. Yeah, it was really neat. It definitely the cliche of a tourist experience. A lot of fun, though. Very interesting, and a fantastic, amazing collection of whiskey bottles and stuff like that.
Yeah, so if you're a whiskey buff, definitely go to it.
Yeah, so... But yeah, as you're going down the Royal Mile, you're going to pass all these places, all these pubs. You'll see, you might recognize the name The World's End. We had lunch there one day. And finally, you kind of get down to the foot of the Royal Mile, and you're at Holyrood Palace. Now, Holyrood Palace today is, it's definitely a much more modern facility than the
original 12th century palace.
Yeah, and much more so than Edinburgh Castle that you've just descended from. And that is where Scottish Parliament sits today. Or is it Parliament? Do they call them Parliament? Scottish Parliament? Scottish Parliament, where they go ahead and where they meet today. So. And
it's also where Queen Elizabeth stays when she visits Scotland or any other royal family. When they're visiting Edinburgh, not when they're just visiting Scotland, because they have, of course, the Balmoral estate that they go to.
Yep.
Which I would love to see. Anyway.
Another trip.
So the palace became a royal residence in the 15th century, and that is when it became the most famous, because Mary Queen of Scots actually stayed there. And it is there that her ghost is said to haunt, along with several others. The most famous one, however, is Agnes, and she is known as the Witch Agnes, Agnes Sampson, the Bald Agnes, or the Wise Wife of Keith. She has a lot of different names, but she is one of the most famous. We're going to switch.
We're going to switch, yes.
So excuse us. You get to see my lovely costume, which I'll talk about later. And I'm sitting on my pillow now. There we go. Maybe. Okay, there we go.
Sorry, everybody. Particularly those of you who cannot see us on the radio right now and you have no idea what we're doing.
He needs to respond to some chattage on Facebook, so that's why he's there. I cannot talk and type at the same time. I'm not talented like that. Anyway, so Agnes was unfortunately accused of witchcraft on an autumn day in 1590. And this is a time when the King of Scotland is actually actively hunting witches, and he actually participates in the witch trials. She was accused by Gillis Duncan, who had already made accusations against several other women, and a lot of the times these accusations were completely and totally false. People were jealous, people were trying to do retribution, they were getting revenge, and a lot of innocent people died because of the witch hunts. Salem's our example of it. Now, Agnes was very much stuck to her morals. She was proclaiming her innocence. Even though they started to torture her, she proclaimed over and over and over again that she was innocent, off and on and off and on, and didn't want to give in to a false confession. But then they found what was known as a witch's mark, and that's when she was tortured even more horrendously, and that's when she finally gave in and gave them a false confession just to stop the torture. And it was after that that even though she had confessed, the king even didn't want to believe her. He didn't want to set this out as her being a witch, but because she had confessed, he was bound. He couldn't negate it. And so she was eventually killed, sentenced to death, and she died January 28th of 1591 with a curse on her lips, whispering until she gave her last breath away. If the stories are true, Holyrood Palace pays the price for all the crimes of its residents from the past. I don't know if I ever want to be living in a place where it pays the price for all the crimes in the past. That's a lot of crimes.
It sounds a bit harsh.
Yeah.
A bit heavy.
So people have reported seeing Agnes walking naked through the palace with visible signs of torture on her body. She's passed through chambers and corridors all throughout the palace. There's no one place that she is just restricted to. She, as I said, has become the most well-known famous British ghost out there. Apart from her, another ghost that walks this area, or that you can actually still see the remains of his murder, is that of David Rizzo, who was the private secretary to Mary, Queen of Scots. He was murdered in 1566 by Mary's husband, who was jealous of her friendship with Rizzo. Although the Queen protested, Rizzo was stabbed 56 times and his body thrown down the staircase. There is still wooden planks in one corner of the room where the murder took place that still has a blood stain from this murder. They can't get rid of it. And it is said that he is occasionally heard thumping down the steps. The body is heard thumping down the steps, which I would find very, very
unsettling.
Yes. Mary Queen of Scots, as I said, is also heard walking through the corridors, or seen walking through the corridors. Sometimes you actually see her in the room where the murder takes place, and she seems to be weeping over her lost friend. So she is seen there as well.
Yes. Interesting location.
Oh, yes.
And that's just scratching the surface of Edinburgh hauntings. You know, Edinburgh may very well be one of the most, if not the most haunted city in all the world.
Yeah, especially with the catacombs. But as I said, that's going to be another
show
altogether.
We can do another whole show on that.
On tunnels.
Yes. Yeah. Cause,
lots of tunnels.
Lots of tunnels. So that was a very good tour. So Meerkat Tour. I did go ahead and somebody was asking. I put a link to Meerkat Tour's Facebook page in the comments section. So if you're interested in looking them up and planning a post-quarantine trip overseas, you can go ahead and look them up. See if you might want to make them part of your excursion.
I'll come.
Yes, sign us up.
I will travel. We'll travel.
Yes. Half Scotch will travel.
We'll travel for Scotch.
Yeah, we'll travel for Scotch. And with that, we actually have another one from Scotland. And
this is another one that Chris and I have been to. This is a ruined castle at this point in time. But it's actually where Mary, Queen of Scots was born.
Linlithgow Palace.
Yes.
It was what, roughly halfway between Edinburgh and Glasgow?
Yeah.
So it's not in downtown Edinburgh. It's in the outskirts there. So
beautiful town though that it's in. Right on a lake. It's absolutely gorgeous. I can see why they wanted to be there. But this was built around 1425 by James I and embellished upon by his successors. It was a luxurious playground. full of beautiful scenery, plenty of opportunities for hunting and falconry. It was the tall turrets that were known as Queen Margaret's Bower, and it is Margaret Tudor, the wife of King James IV, who patiently watched for her husband's return from the Battle of Flodden in 1512. Unfortunately, he died in the battle and never returned, and so it is said that her ghost actually haunts the tower, and she is still watching and waiting for her husband to come home. It was a love match.
Yes.
Now, her son, James V, married Mary of Guise, and it is said that the elaborate fountain that is in the courtyard was actually made to flow with wine on their wedding day.
That's a party.
She was French.
That is a party. Now, the only child that the two of them had that managed to survive infancy was a girl who was born at Linlithgow Palace, and she was baptized at the nearby Church of St. Michael. She was just a few days old when her father died, and she became Mary, Queen of Scots.
She was 6 days old when she became queen.
So Scotland,
I am surprised she survived.
Yeah, considering how brutal they tended to be from time to time. Now, Scotland's monarchs did use the palace up until about 1603, and that's when the Scottish royalty left for England. That's a whole nother chapter of English, Scottish history that we're just not going to even try to touch right now.
Yeah.
Still a bit sensitive to this very day.
Now, as we mentioned, it is a ruin because in 1746, a departing garrison of soldiers forgot to put out their fires.
Oops.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
there's no wood left, basically. It's just a magnificent pile of stone. Beautiful. You can walk around it and all that, but there's no roof, no floor, no wooden floors or anything like that. It's, quite an impressive ruin at that. So, it's with that said, it is, of course, having been this residence and having been a source of much emotional energy for the years that it was in use, it does have its fair share of hauntings. And so you got, it's not much of a surprise that Queen Margaret's Bower is said to be haunted by the ghost of Queen Margaret herself, who is seen standing and watching in vain for her husband to return.
So remember, we talked about the stone theory and that emotions leak in and stay embedded in stone. Considering that it is only the stone that is left in this castle, we're not surprised that Queen Margaret's sorrow and her longing for her husband has seeped into the stones, and that's why she's still there today. There's a second ghost, however, and this is known as the Lady in Blue, and she's seen down in the courtyard going towards the chapel, and many believe that this might be the ghost of Mary Guise, James V's wife, mother of Queen Mary. Now, she is known to be walking across the courtyard by the main entrance of the palace to the adjacent church. There's a royal door on the north side of the church that has been closed off, but the ghostly woman doesn't seem to recognize that, and she just disappears right by the wall where the door's been closed off. So she's still using her royal entrance. Now, a custodian in 1973 recounts that a time that he and his wife and a few visitors saw the shape of a woman near the main entrance. She was in a bluish gown, he told me, walks purposely towards the nearby church. She disappears within a few feet of the wall. Her appearance... I just lost my place. So normally will occur in April, and but she was actually being witnessed in September at that point in time. But normally she appears in April, so there's a tip for you if you want to go and check her out.
In the morning, about 9 o'clock, no less. So
yeah.
it's kind of a
early prayer time.
Yeah, a little bit unusual as far as not exactly a common time for spirits to be seen.
So that's Linlithgow Palace, and it's really a really interesting place. On the weekends, we were actually visited on a Saturday. The local school children actually volunteer there as tour guides. So it was really nice being led through by some of the kids that live in the area, and they had fun little stories to tell.
Yeah, she was sharp.
She was very sharp.
Oh, what was her name? It escapes me.
I don't. She was portraying Queen Margaret.
Yes.
Yeah.
She did a good job of it.
She did. So we're going to jump over to Sweden.
Yes, yeah.
Brandy.
Yes, go ahead. We're going to take a little hop across the water to the east. Yeah, east, northeast-ish, east. Yeah. Somewhere in there. Uh-oh. So, Dottningholm Palace?
Yes.
Dottningholm Palace in Sweden.
So it's actually, the story comes from Queen Sylvia, who is the current queen and wife of King Carl. I got that right?
Has recently
Yes.
told the press that her home is haunted. The elaborate residence in question is
Dottningholm
Palace. It's going
there
to be one of those ones.
There should be a vowel there that's not.
Yeah, and maybe we should have done this one before we started drinking. But anyways, it's a well-preserved palace. It dates back to the 1600s, and the palace is officially known as the Royal Domain of Drottningholm. Mm-hmm. It's located on an island in Lake Mälar in Stockholm, so Stockholm, Sweden, also on my list of places that I'd like to get to one day. It's the first palace that was built there in the late 16th century when King Johann III had made for his consort, Queen Katarina.
Don't even try it.
I'm not even going to try it. Queen Katarina. However, that building was destroyed in a fire in 1661.
The current one, built in 1662, has been there ever since. As I said, it is a World UNESCO site at this point in time because of the 17th century theater that is still in operation there. The Chinese gardens. I'm sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
Sorry. And Chinese Pavilion and the gardens. And it is also inspired by the Palace of Versailles.
That Palace of Versailles has inspired many
a lot
places.
of things. So we have a little connection back in there. Now, the Queen actually was giving a talk to a documentary on the palace, and that's how this ghost story came about. What she has said is that the unliving reside in the palace have added their own intrigues to it as well. There are two ghosts that are allegedly found in the royal residence, the White Lady and the Grey Man. The White Lady specifically seems to appear to foretell the death of someone in the palace, so she's not someone you want to see. There's a lot of white ladies out there who foretell death.
Yes.
No,
all around the globe.
Yeah. There's one up at your college in one of the fraternities, and you're usually supposed to die within 6 months. Yeah. It's kind of frightening.
Got the blue lady here at the governor's mansion.
Yeah. But she doesn't foretell death.
No, this is true. She does not.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Grey Man actually, on the other hand, appears to be as old as the palace itself. It's a phantom that actually has shown itself to all of the kings except for the current one. King Carl has not seen him yet, according to his wife.
He's like me. He's a chiller.
Yep. Moreover, some suggest that they're not the only two spirits haunting the palace. There are strange sounds and banging, thumping noises, opening of doors, moving of furniture in unoccupied rooms, unexplained happenings or feelings that have been noted throughout the palace by various people working there or living there. Nothing has ever been mentioned, however, of past monarchs wandering the halls. So maybe these are all former servants or courtiers or those types of things.
Could be.
But not monarchs. Now, the Queen's, Princess Christina, King Carl's sister, actually backs up the Queen's statement, and I love her quote here. Of course it's haunted. There are ghosts in all old houses, definitely. There's a lot of energy in that house, and it would be strange if it didn't express itself in the form of sounds and shapes. In all old houses, there are stories of ghosts. They've been filled with people over the centuries, and their energies remain. I want to meet this woman.
Yes.
She is my type of woman.
Definitely makes me want to go visit Sweden.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah. Makes me wonder, that was the one story that we have for Sweden as far as haunted palaces go. But I'm kind of curious what, generally speaking, what Scandinavian spirited culture is like. How do they handle their spirits? Obviously, in this case, they're more than very open about it.
Yeah, the Queen calls them the little friends, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, generally speaking, it's got to be a very, very interesting.
Yeah, I have to do a little more research. Yes.
Always more
There's
stuff to research.
There's so much stuff to research. I learn a lot.
My curiosity is easily piqued.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say that there are a lot of different tours. So you can get them for individuals, for groups, themed visits for children and groups as well. And they're actually speculating that maybe sometime in the future there might be a ghost tour. I think that would be awesome.
Nice. Patrick says that the Swiss make good fish. I'll have to take your word on that.
Chris can eat fish.
That that actually can make things kind of difficult. Scandinavians eat a lot of fish.
They do. We'd have to
be careful.
We'd have to do some research.
Details.
This is one we'd have to talk to Wendy about.
Yes.
Have Wendy.
Yes.
Book us a trip.
If she's listening, I'm sure she's overjoyed right now.
All right, so we're gonna bop down to India.
Yeah, we're just
Bopping
a quick hop.
You know, boom. We're
Yeah,
there.
boom. Gotta easily be probably at least an 18-hour flight.
Probably.
From
I'd have to ask a Swati.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, we do have connections there.
We do.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go to Bringrag Bhawan, and I'm sorry if I butchered that.
Bhawan.
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 This is a 183-year-old royal palace near Chateau in Rajasthan. And it is ranked the second most haunted place in India. Sounds interesting.
So, from this point forward, this aforementioned palace,
the Brij Palace,
yes, which has attracted a who's who of British and Indian, elites, was originally built in 1830 to serve as the residence of British officials. If you know anything, the British had a very, very long, deeply intertwined history with India. Still kind of do to a degree, but yeah, that's...
They do have their independence now.
Yes, they do have their independence now. So, it was the residence of British officials, and about 60 years after its inception, it was declared as the State Guard House. One of the modern VIPs to visit this colonial-style mansion is the former Prime Minister of India, Miss Indira Gandhi. And after the palace served as the British residency during the colonial era, it was converted into a heritage hotel in 1980. Although the decades have passed, one thing that has still remained unchanged in the palace is the presence of the ghost of a British officer who was killed way back in 1857. For this reason, the palace is popular for its spooky nature.
Now, they don't like to advertise the fact that they're spooky. So I'm putting that warning out there right now before we talk about the ghost of the...
If you get an itch to go ahead and fly all the way to the other side of the globe and go do some ghost hunting, probably best not to...
They're not going to be open to it.
Nope.
But it'd be really... I was looking at the pictures. It looks really cool. It's right on the water. It looks really interesting. But again, not someplace that's going to openly accept ghost hunters. Not right now, anyway. So the major was actually staying there. He was part of the 40th Bengal Native Infantry and visited Kyoto and settled down in this heritage property for about 13 years with his family. When the famous Sepoy, I really shouldn't have started drinking before this one.
Sepoy Mutiny broke out in 1857. It was a group of Indian soldiers that attacked the Bringrag Bhawan Palace too. They broke into the mansion, causing Major Burton's men to flee.
It was only one camel man who stayed behind with the major and his sons. Now, the major had already was worried about this revolution, this rebellion, so he had already sent his wife and daughters away. But it was him, his two sons, and the camel man that were left to hold the place while it was invaded. They were up on the second floor holding it. They held it for about 5 hours before they ended up surrendering. He actually tried to negotiate for his sons to be able to leave, and that was not going to happen. All three were killed. Actually, all four. I believe the camel man was also killed on the first floor, right underneath where they were holding out. And the bodies were basically left to be desecrated on the grounds. It's at that point in time that the king of Kyoto actually came in and asked to be able to retrieve the bodies in exchange for being held prisoner. They agreed to this because now they had a very, very high-ranking...
A VIP.
So he was able to get the bodies out, and they were able to go and get a proper burial. And he was actually held by this group until March of 1858 when the British came and freed him. And that's when they actually moved the bodies to another location and gave them a full military burial. So... Now, in the 1930s, Irish Pearl actually came to Kyoto with her father, who had been loaned by the government of India to the Maharaja of Kyoto to do a land settlement on this estate. At the age of 17, she was spending Christmas at the old palace that had been turned into the state guest house by that point in time. She was given a room on the first floor, which had one side with 4 isolated entrances, including one up to an upstairs balcony and 2 leading from the roof to where the Burtons had made their last desperate stand. The night was one of cold fear for Iris. She had been too frightened to fall asleep. The next day she requested to be moved to a different room. It was not until she returned to Delhi that she learned about this story of the Major and his sons, and basically who had descended from the roofs and were killed in the room that she was staying in. I don't think I want that room.
No?
No.
You're not going to go for the haunted room? Not this time?
Not where murder takes place. That leaves a stain. Literally.
True.
So
physically and emotionally, spiritually.
I want to be able to sleep. So in the 1980s, the former Marina of Chateau recounted her experience in
Maharani.
Anyway, the Major Burton's ghost to a British journalist. She would see him in the study of her room, in her study room, which was the same room where he was killed. And she would see him as an aged white man with white hair and a walking stick. He would wander throughout the palace as a harmless resident. Even though his spirit does not really harm anybody, the guards here have reported hearing a man's voice speaking in English, commanding them not to fall asleep or to smoke. Apparently he, even as a ghost, is very concerned about another attack happening on the palace. If he finds a guard or somebody who is slumbering when they shouldn't be, he will actually slap them awake. She says it's because he can't actually ever stop protecting this place. Some of the guards have even said that they have been scolded by him because they're not doing their jobs properly. So he's still being a very vigilant army man.
He had his duty.
He did.
And he's still doing it to this very day.
Mm-hmm. Now, it does say that people are uneasy in the central hall and other specific areas of the palace, and people are generally asked to stay indoors at night to avoid taking a walk in the palace garden or terrace, just as a precaution. As I said, they don't like to talk about the ghost. They don't necessarily maybe want you to run into said ghost, even though he seems to be harmless unless you're dozing while you're on duty. I'm just curious who had a question.
Question. Did we ever hear about a potential cemetery behind Babes in Carrytown? Can't say that we have.
We'd have to ask Jeffrey if he knows anything.
Have. But we have connections.
Yeah, one of our guides is connected to Chateau Hill Cemetery, so we'll have to chat with him, see if he knows anything about that. Our last stop, and that's the reason why I'm dressed as I am. This is my Anna costume.
Yes, I almost thought you were going to forget talking about this.
Yes, so this is my new cosplay costume.
Yeah,
I needed to wear it.
Yeah, so if you can't see her, she's all done
very
up.
pretty. I did a whole lot of beading on it, and it's all along the rim too.
Yeah, if you've seen the movie Frozen, it might
Frozen
look
2.
Frozen 2, excuse me, might look somewhat reminiscent of Anna's.
I don't have the big purple jacket because it's way too hot.
Yeah, no. But it is very reminiscent of her tunic. So if you're listening on the radio, you just need to go ahead and look up a picture of Anna in Frozen 2.
It's the black top and the brown pants.
With the beading and all that. So, yeah, Beth decided to
I
get
had
a
way
little
too
dressed.
much fun.
She decided to get a little dressed up this evening. And
I spent a lot of hours on this, so I want to wear it.
She got all dolled up and all that, and
the reason is our last story for the evening.
Well,
this is.
I was gonna say I just showed up.
You put pants on again.
I put pants on, so for everybody who's watching visually, you are welcome.
But the last story that we're going to takes place in Norway, so this is why the Frozen character. In fact, this is the castle in Epcot in Norway that it's based off of. So, Akershus Festning or Akershus Castle or Fortress is in the Norwegian capital Oslo, and it was built to protect and provide a royal residence for the city. The original one seems to have started around 1290, but it's kind of hard to actually put a very specific date down. It first appears in writing in the 1300s. Now, it was a strong defensive area, And it is actually said that this fortress has never been taken in a siege. It was never taken by any foreign country by force. Unfortunately, in World War II, it was just given over to the Nazis.
Yeah. But the fact that it was never taken is kind of impressive because, or is that just the Swiss? They fought with Russia all the time.
Yeah.
It was just the Swiss? Not the Norwegians?
No, it says it was never taken by any foreign force.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking the amount of war that took place up through there.
I'd have to look.
I think Sweden was constantly fighting with Russia for over the course, on and off. So there was.
But we're in Norway.
Yeah, I know we are now.
So
I couldn't remember if the Norwegians fought with them as well. Either way. Anyway.
But it's also the seat where the Steward of Norway would actually work from if the king was out of the country, and it's also a royal mausoleum. It was a prison known as the Slavery. And this is because the prisoners could be rented out for work in the city, and it housed many rebels and criminals throughout Norwegian history. As I mentioned, in 1940, it was surrendered without combat to Nazi Germany, and they also used it as a place for prisons and experiments as well. The Pele group is actually the main group that was imprisoned here by German occupators. And it was liberated on May 11th of 1945, handed back over on behalf of the Norwegian resistance movement. 8 Norwegian traitors were tried for war crimes and sentenced to death here from World War II, and they were executed actually on the fortress as well. So there's been a lot of violent history here at this castle, and it's one of Norway's most important medieval monuments. But also the most haunted place in the country. It includes 67 buildings, but only one of them is haunted, and I find that remarkable. 67 buildings, only one haunted. Anyway.
Alex says you're beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Alright, so the 2 ghosts that haunt here are kind of unique. The first one is the most famous, and this is the Malison, or the ghost dog, that is protecting the castle. It said the Malison is a demon dog who still protects the gates of the castle, and if you're approached by him, you will die a horrible death within 3 months. Don't pet this dog, Marcia. One of our guides loves dogs.
Can't resist dogs.
Yeah, don't pet this one.
Can't resist cats either, even though she's kind of allergic to them.
So the story is that Garshol, who was one of the guardsmen, actually probably buried the dog alive at the entrance to scare away intruders, and he was forcing it to become a ghost guard dog. I don't like this guy.
Interesting. I can't say I approve, but it's interesting theory.
The dog was actually... Oh, you would like the cider?
Thank you.
The dog was actually found buried in the Maiden's Tower on the east side of the fortress, which is where the old main entrance to the castle was located. So they actually did find the buried dog. There have also been reports of ghostly guards standing near this old entrance that is no longer active and is actually covered up. They will appear and then disappear from their posts. There's also a no-face woman named Mantelgustrein, bless me, who emerges.
Mantelgustine?
Yeah.
Gustine?
She emerges from the darkness in a full-length robe. She's often seen walking back to her chambers within the castle. They also hear prison chains rattling in the dark and screams of horror and torture that are lingering from the old dungeons. So, yeah. Interesting place. Norway's another place I want to go. I really want to go see the fords. So maybe we'll have to see if there's a way we can go check that out.
We were looking at a cruise there not too long ago.
We were. I wonder if any of them go near this. Have to look at the excursions.
Yes. Okay.
Anniversary trip.
I thought we already had an anniversary trip lined up.
Anniversary trip.
Another anniversary trip. Oh, okay.
A halfway anniversary trip.
Okay.
But 18-year one, yeah.
18? What's so special about 18?
Just because.
Just because, okay. Just making sure we're on the same page here.
Because it's time to save up. After after a kitchen renovation and a brand new car.
Yeah. Oh, if you've been following our trials and
renovation is done tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes. Well, almost. It'll be like 99% finished tomorrow.
Yeah.
There'll be a couple little detail things to do, but the countertops are going to be put in tomorrow, which means we will have a functioning kitchen again tomorrow.
I can do Facebook Live kitchen cooking shows again.
She does those on her personal page.
I do. Everybody likes them.
Do we need to set up a public persona for you just so you can do your cooking shows?
We might have to. Let's work on this first.
Yeah, we got a few projects on our plate. It's yeah. But yeah, so actually, yeah, that was our last story.
That was our last story for the night. So yeah, lots of places to go and check out post quarantine, folks. So once we can all freely travel again,
yes,
let's go travel.
Yeah. And when you're not hitting the road, come see us.
Yes.
Or if you're listening to or watching or listening to us from out of town, come visit us here in Richmond. We'd love to have you.
Or if we ever put together a ghost trip, come with us.
Yeah, we'll see.
I would love to put together a ghost trip.
We will have to check that out.
Yes.
So
a European one would be awesome.
I wouldn't complain at that. That'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, so speaking, come visit us. Please come visit us. We would absolutely love to have you here in Richmond once all of this crap starts settling down.
And we're allowed to open again.
As we mentioned at the very beginning of this evening, we have our fingers crossed that we will hopefully be able to start our tours again on a very limited basis in about a week and a half. We're waiting to hear back from.
We need confirmation that we're allowed to do this because we're in a very weird, precarious spot. We're outside, but we're entertainment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's we actually posed the question to Virginia Tourism, and I guess
they're going to contact the governor and find out.
The governor or his health officials or something like that, and they're going to go ahead and see what they can get us some information. So we'll see what happens with that, because we would love to be able to get back out on the streets and start telling stories to people out here on the streets of Richmond. But we are not going to be going anywhere here either. We will definitely be back next week. What was next week's topic?
We haven't picked yet.
Oh.
Do we want to do Creepy Dolls 2?
Creepy Dolls 2? Okay. People like Creepy Dolls 1. So
I have Creepy Dolls 2 ready to go. So
yes.
we'll pull that one out. And I'm also working on Haunted Hawaii. So.
Okay. Got a couple of questions here. Okay. The radio station where folks can tune in, it is an internet radio station. Yep. It's not over the airwaves, so to speak. If you look up, it's the Vibe. That's VIBE Radio Network. And I think I had the name, and I even had the link in the event posting for the live stream tonight. So if you go back and check that out, you can go ahead. You can look it up on there. And again,
it has our older shows on it as well that you can search through, because we've been doing this for over a year and a half now. Yeah,
it's been over a year and a half. We started doing them on a monthly basis. I think it was August of 2018. We were doing them on once a month, and with this whole thing going on, we wanted to talk to people and tell stories for our own sanity as much as to entertain you. So we started doing this every week. This is week 8. We will definitely be back with week 9, consecutive week 9. And then once we do get back up and running with the outdoor walking tours again, we will be doing this at least once a month.
If not twice a month.
And we also have a couple other radio-esque type projects
that we're working on
up our sleeves, which not quite ready to announce yet. Might be able to announce it next week.
Yep.
So we will we'll keep our eyes out, or we'll keep you posted on that. Let's see. Creepy Dolls are awesome. Count me on a trip. Yeah, Alex. You just stay tuned. Follow the Facebook page. If we ever get anything together like that, we will be posting it all over Facebook. So
we do have an in with a trip organizer. That's actually the trip we went on in March. Was kind of a trial run to see how one of these things would work. And we would love to get one together. Definitely, I would love to go abroad with one, but I also would like to do one here in state, or not necessarily in state, but in
the
country.
States.
Yeah. maybe getting down to like St. Augustine or what, some of those Savannah, St. Augustine, Charleston, and
Yep. So we shall see.
yeah.
But yeah, I also again about the Vibe Radio Network. We are by far not the only show on the Vibe
No, we're
Radio
not.
Network.
So definitely check them out because there's a lot of different paranormal shows on the Vibe Network.
And a lot of them they'll do interviews with various paranormal personalities from all over the place. They're all very good friends of us. They're all fantastic people, entertaining people. They'll look at the paranormal stuff from a whole bunch of different angles, and just they're great people. They're on almost every night of the week. There's shows on Vibe Radio Network almost every night of the week. And you can always, as Beth said, you can always go back and check out the old episodes as well. So just check out Vibe Radio Network. You can find our old episodes. You can find our friends' old episodes. And
the Freaking Awesome Show. It used to be the Freaking Awesome Paranormal Show. But then they just decided to expand it into all topics instead of just paranormal. So definitely check them out. And there's a lot of different paranormal investigators and psychics or sensitives who have their own show, and they talk about a whole bunch of different variety of topics.
Yeah. So if you can't get enough paranormal from us just doing this on Monday nights, and once we go back to our closer to a somewhat normal schedule for what it is, you can always go and you can find a lot more paranormal stuff there. And as we said, we also got some stuff up our sleeves, which we're just not quite ready to announce yet. But as I said, maybe as early as next week, I might be able to go ahead and say, hey, everybody, check this out.
Yeah. And if you're interested in another Facebook Live paranormal post too, our friends at RVA Paranormal, they actually have a Tuesday night show.
Yes,
that they
that's
do
right.
Every Tuesday.
And that's at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. So definitely check them out. It's Steve Dills and John and Lynn Harris. They are wonderful friends of ours, and they also bring in a lot of guests to talk to. They had Daryl Masterson on there from Ghost Hunters not too long ago, and they've had quite a few other people who either own haunted properties or they're other fellow investigators and that sort of thing. So definitely check them out as well.
Yeah, and that's RVA. Steve Dills is also part of Transcend Paranormal. He's one of the lead of Transcend Paranormal.
And they're the ones who do the investigations up at Scotchtown and Hanover Tavern, and also down at Henricus Park.
Yep.
So that we work with.
Yeah, if you've gone into our Facebook page and you've looked at our upcoming events, it's kind of a little sparse right now, but you'll see two things. You'll see tonight's event, first of all, and then on August 8th, you will see a paranormal investigation of Scotchtown and Hanover Tavern. We're going to be, it's going to be led by Steve and his group, Transcend Paranormal, and they're letting us come on in and be some guest investigators for that night. So as long as this whole thing starts to clear up and we can kind of do a gathering thing by early August, knock on wood, we will...
and there may be one in June.
And Alex, real quick, no, RVA Paranormal, they are not on the Vibe Radio Network.
They're on Facebook. They
do Facebook Live. So you should be able to go and if you look up RVA Paranormal on Facebook, I think that they save all of their old their Facebook Live videos to their Facebook page. So they're not one of the ones on the Vibe Radio Network, but there is a wealth of paranormal talks both on Facebook Live and on the Vibe Radio Network that you can go back. And actually,
John is part of the the Twisted team now too.
Steve is.
Yeah.
John Harris?
John Harris is part of the Twisted Realm team now.
So was Steve.
Steve was, but he's not as active with them anymore.
I missed something.
Yeah. I mean, he still does events with them, but...
If anybody if any of those people are listening or watching right now, please correct us if we're mistaken.
Well, remember on the cruise, John was announced as being part of the new team.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were working, but I thought... Excuse me, I thought Steve was doing stuff.
He works with them on Haunted Nights.
Yeah, with the that's right, the Haunted Night stuff. Okay, that
clarifies it. There's so many different things that they all interact and do together.
Yes.
So because this does this one does this one does that one.
We're all friends.
We are. We all love and support each other in the paranormal world.
Yes.
Because that's what you do.
Yep. So, anyways.
Yeah, so Creepy Dolls 2.
Creepy Dolls 2. We will do Creepy Dolls Part 2 next Monday night at 8:30.
Yes.
We'll be back here for week number 9 consecutive of this.
Yep.
And we will be playing it by ear from that point forward. Next week we'll probably have a load of information for you. Not just on, not just with Creepy Dolls, but other stuff that we have coming up and what's been going on. So, guys, thanks for tuning in with us tonight. Oh, one last thing. Shameless plug on our part. If you are so inclined, if you want to throw us a little token of your support, we do have some gift cards available for sale. If you go to our Facebook page, I have a post pinned to the top of our Facebook feed, and it has a link in there that will take you to our ticketing service, Peak. And that link takes you specifically to the gift card page, and you can go ahead and you can buy gift certificates for tour tickets down the line. As I said, we're hoping to be open again sooner than later, but just got a few things that we're trying to shake out. In the meantime, if you want to go ahead and support us, we do greatly appreciate it. You can go ahead.
They make wonderful gifts.
Yes, they do. Yeah, you can gift them to friends as well, friends and family. So, thank you guys so much, and we are very happy to be able to do this for you all as well. So, with that,
we'll see you next Monday.
We will see you next Monday. Thanks again, everybody, and you all have a good night.
Cheers, y'all. Night.